Grace United Church, where the pastor is Melody C. Tonight we're going to continue this journey with Job. Last week we heard from a young man, Elihu. You know, we thought for the last 5 weeks, we thought that there was only 3 people visiting Job, but we found out there was another young, respectful young man. You know what? He sat there quietly, and he was compelled to speak. Last week, we heard a little bit from him. We're going to continue to hear from him this week. And you know, the young man was very respectful because we did not even know that he was there until he spoke. So now, as I studied this week, in verses 36 and 37, I thought that the young man was trying to speak for God and was trying to just lend what he thought he knew about this situation. So as we go forth in the lesson, we'll read chapters 36 and 37, then we'll discuss it a little bit, and then what we'll do, we'll complete this study with Job. And I want to just pray that we all will understand and know that God has the last word in our lives, no matter what we are going through. Let us pray. Lord, we just thank you for this evening. We thank you for allowing us to gather just one more time. So as we go forth with this lesson, by the end of this lesson, we want to pray and be sure that it's through you that we have the victory. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now we're going to read verses 36 and 37, discuss it a little bit, then we'll move on to verses, we'll complete this lesson.
Okay. So I'm reading from the Common English Bible, and the reason we wanted to make sure we picked these up is because we didn't get to complete them on last week. So this is Elihu. He says, "Wait a little while so I can demonstrate for you that there is still something more to say about God. I will draw from my broad knowledge, attribute justice to my making. My words are certainly truthful. One with total knowledge is present with you. Look, God is mighty and doesn't reject anyone. He is mighty in strength and mind. He doesn't let the wicked live, but grants justice to the poor. He doesn't avert his eyes from the righteous. He seats kings on thrones forever, and they are lifted up. If they are tied with ropes, caught in cords of affliction, he informs them about their offenses and their grave sins. He opens their eyes with discipline and commands them to turn from wrong. If they listen and serve, they spend their days in plenty, their years contentedly. But if they don't listen, they perish by the sword, breathe their last without understanding. Those with impious hearts become furious. They don't cry out even though he binds them. They die young. They are among the holy ones. He saves the weak in their affliction, opens their ears through oppression. Surely he draws you up from the brink of trouble to a wide place without distress. Your table is set with rich food. You are overly concerned about the case of the wicked. Justice will be upheld in it. Don't let them lure you with wealth. Don't let a huge bribe mislead you. Will he arrange your rescue from distress or from all your exertions of strength? Don't wish for the night when people vanish from their place. Take care. Don't turn to evil because you've chosen it over affliction. Look, God is inaccessible due to his power. Who is a teacher like him? Who has repaid him for his action? And who would ever say you've done wrong? Remember to praise his work that all of us have seen. Every person has seen him. People can observe at great distance. Look, God is exalted and unknowable. The number of his years is beyond counting. He draws up drops of water that distill rain from his flood. The clouds pour moisture and drip continually on humans. Even if one perceives a spreading cloud and the thunder of his pavilion, Look how he spreads lightning across it. He overturns the circling clouds by his guidance. They do their work, doing everything he commands over the entire earth, whether for punishment, for his world, or for kindness. God makes it all happen. Hear this, Job. Stop and ponder God's mighty deeds. Do you realize that when God commands them, his clouds produce lightning? Do you understand the positioning of the clouds, the amazing deeds of one with perfect knowledge? You whose clothes are hot. When earth is calmed by the south wind, can you form the sky with him? Hard like a mirror made of metal? Tell us what we should say to him. We can't present our case due to darkness. Should someone inform him that I wish to speak? Or would anyone say he wants to be devoured? For now, no one can look at the sun. It is bright in the sky. The wind has passed and cleared away the clouds. From the north comes golden light, the awesome splendor of God. As for the Almighty, we can't find him. He is powerful and just, abundantly righteous. He won't respond. Therefore, people fear him. None of the wise can see him, and covers the seabed for, okay, am I doing this right? No, I did something wrong. Let me just go down to 37, okay? All right. I probably was. Forgive me. My pages are all messed up here. So I'll just read the first part of it. Oh, my mind is disturbed by this and is more troubled than usual. Listen closely to the rumble of his voice, the roaring issuing from his mouth. He looses it under the whole sky, his lightning on earth's edges. After it, a voice roars. He thunders with a mighty voice, and no one can stop it. When his voice is heard, God roars with his wondrous voice. He does great things we can't know. He says to the snow, fall to earth, and to the downpour of rain, be a mighty shower. He stamps the hand of every person so all can know his work. The wild beasts enter its lair, lies down in its den. The storm comes from its chambers, the cold from the north wind. By God's breath, ice forms. Waters expanse becomes solid. And I'll just conclude with 11. He also fills cloud with moisture. His lightning scatters clouds.
You know, as we Elihu, this young man he thinks he's talking on God's behalf, and he's trying to explain to Job, do you know that what God can do? He also, I got from the reading in 36 that he's talking about the power that God possesses, and that God's justice and righteousness all takes place. And he's explaining what God does for the obedient and what takes place for the disobedient. Those are some of the things that he's trying to explain to Job. So as we go on in this lesson, we'll finish hearing our thoughts on Elihu, but then we also want to be assured that we know that God has the last word. So after we discuss a little bit about Elihu, we're gonna listen to hear what God has said for us. Amen. Amen. So, anybody got any thoughts on verses 36 and 37?
I kind of thought that, he was, like you said, he was trying to speak in God's behalf, but he's telling Job something that Job already knows. It's like he's not presenting nothing new to Job. And that's what Job was trying to explain to his friends, the other three, was that, I understand who the Almighty is and what he can do and what his powers are, and I'm just trying to plead my case of innocence because I know I haven't done anything.
I like verse 6 of 36. He says, and verse 6 and 7, he says, he does not keep the wicked alive, but he gives the afflicted their right. He does not withdraw his eyes from the righteous, but with the kings on the throne, he sets them forever, and they are exalted. So he's saying that God does not keep the wicked alive. By him still being alive, of course you're not wicked. That's the way I saw it, that you're not wrong. But he gives the afflicted their right. You know, he's trying to right you for some strange reason of what you're trying to do. That's what I got out of it.
And also, here it is. Ellen, you always, he talked about all the things that God has done, the greatness, and he insists that we remember the greatness of God. Sometimes we walk around and life is going well, and you know what? We become complacent. We forget all that God has done for us, and he's telling us to remember. And what happened? And throughout the 36, he explains to us that it's going to be a sad fate for the hypocrite. And that's what he was trying to say. Now, as he was talking to Job, but he wanted the other seniors that he had much respect for to hear the other three. So as he continued to talk, he's talking to Job, but it's for everyone that's in the room. And then, you know, he speaks about when he goes talking about the weather, you know what? These are things that only God can control. As we go back and forth and we try to go on in life, you know what? There are some things that we can do with God's help. But Elihu was talking about a lot of things that only God can control when he goes to talking about the different weather and how things change. And then he goes on to, and then, you know, then we move on into 37, and Elihu, God uses him. So we have to be prepared, no matter what your background is, for God to use you in some form or another. Because they had Bildad and the others were in the room, but why did he pick Elihu to show Job that he would speak to him in a storm? So if he could use the young man Elihu, that means that he could use any one of us at any time. All we got to do is be ready to be used.
Yeah, I think God is always, especially in the Word, is always showing us that I can use anybody, I can use anything, I can make animals talk, you know. Yes. And so, you know, that is inspiring for those of us that do feel like, well, maybe God can't do nothing, you know, with me. God is also always showing us a shift. Normally we think older people have all the wisdom. And here's a young man, the youngest of them, who is coming up with some wisdom that's pretty deep. And he's not afraid. So there's the shift, because we know when Jesus came, everything Jesus did was different. Mm-hmm. You know, Jesus, I'd be like, come on, Jesus, what? We ain't supposed to dress up, and you know, we ain't supposed to be sharp when we go to church. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be about what's inside of us, really.
You know, it's amazing too how Elihu spoke about the weather and God controlling those things. And you know, we seen God in action last night.
Yes.
You know, nobody can do that but God. God can decide when he wants a storm to come, and he can decide when he wants that storm to be dried up. And as much as we would like to think that we're in control of stuff, we're not. We're really not. God has the last say so over everything. And he proves it over and over again.
And then we see down at the end of verse 37 where Elihu, he gives his something like his final advice to Job. He tells Job, say, listen to me. And then he tells him, hey, you don't know much as you think you know. And then he tells him, say, look, stop trying to speak to God and fear him, and not that spooky kind of fear, to reverence him. And so that is the final advice that Elihu gives to Job. And so if there's no other any other thoughts, you know what? Let's move to verse 38 and hear from God.
Amen.
Would somebody like to read chapter 38?
I'll read. The Lord challenges Job. Then the Lord answered Job from the wilderness. Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much. Do you know how its dimensions were determined, and who did the surveying? What supports its foundations, and who laid its cornerstone? As the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Who defined the boundaries of the sea as it burst from the womb, and as I clothed it with clouds and thick darkness? For I locked it behind barred gates, limiting its shores. I said, thus far and no further will you come. Here your proud ways must stop. Have you ever commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise in the east? Have you ever told the daylight to spread to the ends of the earth, to bring an end to the night's wickedness? For the features of the earth take shape as the light approaches, and the dawn is robed in red. The light disturbs the haunts of the wicked, and it stops the arm that is raised in violence. Have you explored the springs from which the seas come? Have you walked about and explored their depths? Do you know where the gates of death are located? Have you seen the gates of utter gloom? Do you realize the extent of the earth? Tell me about it if you know. Where does the light come from? And where does the darkness go? Can you take it to its home? Do you know how to get there? But of course you know all this, for you were born before it was all created, and you are so very experienced. Have you visited the treasures of the snow? Have you seen where the hail is made and stored? I have reserved it for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war. Where is the path to the origin of light? Where is the home of the east wind? Who created a channel for the torrent of rain? Who laid out the path for the lightning? Who makes the rain fall on barren land, in a desert where no one lives? Who sends the rain that satisfies the parched ground and makes the tender grass spring up? Does the rain have a father? Where does dew come from? Who is the mother of the ice? Wow. Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens?
Wow.
For the water turns to ice as hard as rock, and surface of the water freezes. Can you hold back the moments of the stars? Are you able to restrain the Pleiades or Orion? Can you ensure the proper sequence of the seasons, or guide the constellations of the bear with her cubs across the heavens? Do you know the laws of the universe and how God rules the earth? Can you shout to the clouds and make it rain? Can you make lightning appear and cause it to strike as you direct it? Who gives intuition and instinct? Who is wise enough to count all the clouds? Who can tilt the water jars of heaven, turning the dry dust to clumps of mud? Can you stalk prey for a lioness and satisfy the young lion's appetites as they lie in their dens or crouch in the thicket? Who provides food for the ravens when their young cry out to God as they wander about in hunger?
Amen.
Amen.
You know, God, he's asking Job, do you know the secrets of creation? Only things that God knows. Do you know the boundaries of the sea? You know, I read this and I thought that, you know what, God is so magnificent in his creation.
Because God has made her forget wisdom and given her no share in understanding. When she rouses herself to flee, she laughs at the horse and his rider. Do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? Do you make him leap like the locust? His majestic snorting is terrifying. He paws in the valley and exalts in his strength. He goes out to meet the weapons. He laughs at fear and is not dismayed. He does not turn back from the sword. Upon him rattle the quiver, the flashing spear and the javelin. With fierceness and rage he swallows the ground. He cannot stand still at the sound of the trumpet. When the trumpet sounds, he says, off. He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. It is by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads his wing toward the earth. It is at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high. On the rock he dwells and makes his home, on the rocky crag and stronghold. From there he spies out the prey. His eyes behold it from far away. His young ones suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is he.
Amen. God continues to speak about the mysteries of the earth, the things that he controls. And then he speaks, in the King James Version, he speaks about the unicorn. That's for us what we call a mythical creature, but it's not a mythical creature to God. God, that's the first mythical creature that he talks about, because what God does, he can create things that only we could imagine. So he illustrates that to us in verses 39 and 38, chapters 38 and 39. So, do anybody else have any thoughts on that reading? If not, we're going to move on to chapter 40. And then,
Sorry, can I say this though?
Yeah.
It just occurred to me how long God took to finally say something.
Yeah.
And Job been begging for God from the very beginning. And it took God all this time, chapter 39, to say something. That's just like life.
Yeah.
You know, we could be going through something, wondering where is God, and then finally.
And not only that, not only it took him this long to speak to Job, but you know what? He did not interfere in the process. He did not, during the time up until now, he never spoke to Job. He never comforted Job. He never took part in sustaining Job. God is always there, but he was absent as far as being a physical help to Job during this process.
And I think that's how sometimes we become anxious. God, how long? This has been long enough. When are you going to step in? And he's there. He's been there all the time.
Just watching.
Right.
Because God knows us and God trusts us. And we just don't trust ourselves. And then as we go through it, we wonder, do we really know God? But I mean, this is truly a lesson. I mean, this right here, oh my goodness.
I saw it too as God allowing Job's faith to mature.
Yeah.
You know, because Job could have easily gave up and went the other way. But as he continued to struggle with his physical things that was going on, his faith continued to grow spiritually, because he continued to say, well, God knows me. And God, he knows where I'm at. He knows what I've done, and he knows everything about me. There's nothing hidden from him, even though you all are accusing me of this thing that I've done in darkness, and you want me to tell you something that I have no idea of what you're looking for.
Right.
But God was, I could see God allowing Job's faith to mature.
And what we, and I think we can't lose sight that God spoke to Satan first, right? And he said, I know my servant Job. And Satan insisted, just put it on him. He's gonna crack and he's gonna curse you. But God knew where Job was at this point.
That's exactly.
And he was not going to let the devil win. So he knew that Job was at his lowest point. And he said, okay, it's time for me to step in. It's time for me to step in before he utters a word that I can't take back.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that God allowed the accuser to shoot his best shot.
Yep.
And attack him physically and take everything he had from him. And then he allowed his friends to come and accuse him of, that's something.
Yeah.
For years, for an endless amount of time, it probably seemed like.
And we're reading Job's story. Job didn't have this. He didn't have the book to read.
Right.
But we have the book to read.
Yeah.
So we can say, wow, okay, this has been going on a long time. Oh, maybe I better read me some Job. So I can get some inspiration. Because I know there's a chapter 42 coming.
Yes.
Amen.
I was listening to this radio program, and they were talking about the people in Cuba, how oppressed they were, and how they just clung to God. And so the guy, he was from America, and he said, well, I'm going to pray that God take this oppression off of you. And he said, don't do that, because we need this oppression. He said, as a matter of fact, we're praying for the people of America to be oppressed so they can draw closer to God.
Yes.
Yes.
As we go on to 40, and as she was saying that, you know what, I just doodled it out, like say, in chapter 40, I was like, just wrote like a subtitle, and I like say, call it The Power of God. Would somebody like to read chapter 40?
I read it.
Okay.
I spoke foolishly, Lord. What can I answer? I will not try to say anything else. I have already said more than I should. Then out of the storm, the Lord spoke to Job once again. Stand up now like a man and answer my questions. What are you trying to prove? That I am unjust? To put me in the wrong and yourself in the right? Are you as strong as I am? Can you voice thunder as loud as mine? If so, stand up in your honor and pride. Clothe yourself with the majesty and glory. Look at those who are proud. Pour out your anger and humble them. Yes, look at them and bring them down. Crush the wicked where they stand. Bury them all in the ground. Bind them in the world of the dead. Then I will be the first to praise you and admit that you won the victory yourself. I look at the monster, Behemoth. I created him and I created you. He eats grass like a cow, but what strength there is in his body and what power there is in his muscles. His tail stands up like a cedar, and the muscles in his legs are strong. His bones are as strong as bronze, and his legs are like iron bars. The most amazing of all my creatures, only his creator can defeat him. Grass to feed him grows on the hills where wild beasts play. He lies down under the thorn bushes and hides among the reeds in the swamp. The thorn bushes and the willows are by the stream, give him shelter in their shade. He is not afraid of a rushing river. He is calm when the Jordan dashes in his face. Who can build his eyes and capture him? Who can blind his eyes and capture him? Or who can catch his snout in a trap? Who can do that?
I can't.
Amen.
I like in the message they said, but you don't want him as a pet. You'd never be able to housebreak him. That's a powerful beast.
Yeah. God speaks of the behemoth, and that's a mythical for us. It's a mythical creature. But for God, God has created this creature, and he speaks about it. This creature is what we might consider a dinosaur. He's that big, he's that powerful, he's that strong. And God is trying to Job say, you think you're strong as he is? And he asked Job, but Job humbled himself. Early on, Job became speechless. He was like, let me be quiet while God is talking. And that's one of the things that we have to learn how to do. When God is speaking, we need to be quiet and listen. And he says he spoke to him out of a storm. It does not matter how God is trying to communicate to us. When we grab hold to that relationship with him, we need to be trying to listen to what he's saying that's good for us. Amen. So let's listen. So let's hear from some of you all, some of the things that you all have thought about as we read chapter 40.
I was just trying to visualize going through and feeling like God was demanding something of me, you know, like I'm on the pity pot or whatever, and I was just trying to visualize that. Whenever I read scripture, that's what I do. I try to put myself in there, or I try to see if I can remember of an instance where I felt like that, or went through something similar to that. And I can't recall anything right now, but I know that I've been in storms a long time and wondered when God was going to bring some relief, you know. So I do recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I found it funny too that here Job has been speaking throughout for 39 chapters about God. He want to talk to God.
Yeah.
He looking for God to speak, and now God speaking to Job. Said, putting a button on my lips. I'm shutting up.
Yeah, and then God tells Job, he says, unleash your outrage.
Right. God gives him the opportunity to speak.
You had something to say?
You got something to say? I want you to tell.
So you know, God gives him the opportunity to speak, and now he won't say nothing.
Job can't say nothing.
He wants to be quiet, but it reassures Job, if nothing else, that God heard him from the first time he started talking.
And you know,
From the first moment this conversation started,
Now the fear
he
of God
heard
is
him.
in the King James version of this lesson, early on in chapter 40, God tells Job, stand up and be a man. That's the second time Job had been told that. He was told that earlier in chapter 38. So this chapter is giving us an example of God's might and an example of Job's weakness, our weakness. When it comes to God, he is strong and we're weak.
I want to go back to what John said, though, because, I've done that. I have wanted God to come on with it, Jesus, come on with it. And then, for me, what I interpret that is, maybe I don't hear God directly, but I get the elevation, or I get what it is that I want. And then it's like, is this what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay. Now I had nothing to say.
Right.
This wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like this version that I have. It starts, the chapter 40 start off. The Lord said to Job, do you still want to argue with the Almighty? You are God's critic, but do you have the answers?
Well.
Mine says,
Say what yours says.
do you presume to tell me what I'm doing wrong? Are you calling me a sinner so you can be a saint? Do you have an arm like my arm? Can you shout the thunder the way I can? Go ahead, show your stuff.
It sounds like God was being a comedian.
And
Let me see what you made.
I got the Message translation say, God then confronted Job directly. He says, now what do you have to say for yourself? Are you going to haul me, the Almighty One, into court and press charges? Go for it. Oh boy. Little ant, get away from me.
But we can all be reassured that
Yes.
God hears us from the first moment we ask him.
Yes.
And I even believe there was I can't remember what book it was in, but there was somebody that had asked God for something, and they thought God hadn't answered their prayer, but he had sent Gabriel to bring the answer, but Gabriel got into a fight with Satan, and that's what held him up. Yeah, Daniel. and he got held up. So it's not always that God didn't send the answer, but sometimes there's a fight going on in the spirit realm that holds up that answer sometimes.
Daniel wanted to know why it was that they had already gone through 70 years and they were still in captivity. And I think it was 70 years, right? They were supposed to be there 70 years. Yeah, and he wanted to know, why are we still here? And that's what happened. Gabriel got into a fight and he left Michael to continue the fight so he could come and tell. Yes. I love that story.
And isn't it amazing that we're asking the same question? We as a people, it's been 400 years, God, and we're still in slavery.
Yes.
When are you going to answer us? See?
Well, now that kind of stumped us because I don't know when he's going to answer.
No, you don't know.
You ain't gonna presume to know either, right?
And reading this, do we want to hear that answer right now?
I don't know if anybody else feel it, but I feel like there is a shift happening in the realm, the atmosphere. You know, as far as, you know, this black-white thing going on. I feel there's a shift going on. I don't know if we'll be around to see the completion of it, but I do feel like there's a shift happening.
To compare Job, us, to the third mythical creature that's in this, that's the Leviathan. And would somebody like to read chapter 41?
I'll read it. Okay. I'm in the NRSV version. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook, or press down its tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope in its nose, or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it make many supplications to you? Will it speak soft words to you? Will it make a covenant with you, to be taken as your servant forever? Will you play with it as with a bird, or will you put it on a leash for your girls? Will traders bargain over it? Will they divide it up among the merchants? Can you fill its skin with harpoons, or its head with fishing spears? Lay hands on it? Think of the battle. You will not do it again. And hope of capturing it will be disappointed. Were not even the gods overwhelmed at the sight of it? No one is so fierce as to dare to stir it up. Who can stand before it? Who can confront it and be safe? Under the whole heaven, who? I will not keep silence concerning its limbs, or its mighty strength, or its splendid frame. Who can strip off its outer garment? Who can penetrate its double coat of mail? Who can open the doors of its face? There is terror all around its teeth. Its back is made of shields in rows, shut up closely as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They clasp each other and cannot be separated. It sneezes, flash forth light, and its eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. From its mouth go flaming torches. Sparks of fire leap out. Out of its nostrils comes smoke, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. Its breath kindles coals, and a flame comes out of its mouth. In its neck abides strength, and terror dances before it. The folds of its flesh cling together. It is firmly cast and immovable. Its heart is as hard as stone, as hard as the lower millstone. When it raises itself up, the gods are afraid. At the crashing, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches it, it does not avail, nor does the spear, the dart, or the javelin. It counts iron as straw, and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make it flee. Sling stones for it are turned to chaff. Clubs are counted as chaff. It laughs at the rattle of javelin. Its underparts are like sharp potsherds. It spreads itself like a threshing sledge on the mire. It makes the deep boil like a pot. It makes the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a shining wake behind it. One would think the deep to be white-haired. On earth it has no equal, a creature without fear. It surveys everything that is lofty. It is king over all that are proud. Wow, that's a monster.
Amen.
Amen.
And, you know, in chapter 41, God tells us this. He said, if you can't, you you think you bad. But if you can't overpower Leviathan, what do you think? How do you think you can overpower me? He gives us every area, because you know what? In our mind, what we do is this. We think, God got me here, but I'm going to get around him. I'm going to go over here. And there's no way. He gives us every example of our weakness against him. He uses this third mythical creature to give us all of the answers we need to know that how powerful he is. And he also tells us, he explains to us that we need to reverence him in the same area that he did. And he talks about that this creature is the most powerful creature on earth. But that's why he tells us that he's the powerfulest creature on earth, because God is the most powerful creature in the universe. Well, he's in control of everything. So he has to, that's why at the end he has to explain to us, like, that's an earthly thing, and you can't overpower that. But I am in control of everything. So you need to take a look at that and reverence me with all you have.
My book was telling me that he was describing that being as a crocodile.
Or I thought of a dragon.
Well, you know what? Now, this is just me. I read something to that effect, but you know what? This is what you call a mythical creature, and you know what? We know what crocodiles are. They are not a myth. And what happened is, during that time, this creature, every time that this creature was seen, either the ship turned around and went the opposite way, or either it did something to destroy and it was so horrific that you know what they said happened was unbelievable. The only people that believed it was the people that was there, and that's why it's known to us as being mythical. Because they have not captured this creature, and the only people who have seen it is the ones who have experienced his wrath.
I think that in John's Bible, sometimes they'll use words that people are more familiar with to help them understand, because the sentiment is, like it says, can you catch a crocodile with a hook or put a noose around its jaw? In other words, you still can't do that.
You can't do that.
Right. So.
He said, but I can, because I create.
I can.
And not only that, he didn't say that God's might is so great that this great creature will lay dormant at the command of God. God can tell it, say, hey, don't you move. And it'll listen to God. See, that's the difference. That's what it's talking about down here in verses 22 to 24. That's the strength that God possesses. So we are nearing the end, and we're gonna. This is what we'll be able to shout. We'll have our hallelujah minutes, and then we'll be able to go home, and we'll be able to know for ourselves that God is God. So as we prepare ourselves for a happy ending, we used to we listened to fairy tales and thought that fairy tales were the only things that had happy endings. Because some of us has wondered why my life is not going so swell. You know, I went to court with my son and it didn't work out. Where was God at then? You know what, as believers of Christ, sometimes we think that there cannot be a happy ending in our situations. But Job is going to be the perfect example that we can encounter God has got some victories ahead for us. Not just one, victories.
Hallelujah.
Plural.
Amen.
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 So, would somebody like to read chapter 42, I'm sorry.
I am convinced you can do anything and everything. Nothing and no one can upset your plan. You asked, who is this muddying the water, ignoring, confusing the issues, second-guessing my purposes? I admitted I was the one. I babbled on about things far beyond me, made small talk about wonders way over my head. You told me, listen and let me do the talking. Let me ask the questions. You give the answers. I admit I once lived by rumors of you. Now I have it all firsthand from my own eyes and ears. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'll never do it again, I promise. I'll never again live on the crust of hearsay, crumbs of rumor. God restores Job. After God had finished addressing Job, he turned to Eliphaz the Temite and said, I've had it with you and your two friends. I'm fed up. I haven't been honest either with me about me. Not the way my friend Job has. Here's what you must do. Take 7 bulls and 7 rams and go to my friend Job. Sacrifice a burnt offering on your own behalf. My friend Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer. He will ask me not to treat you as you deserve for talking nonsense about me, and not for being honest with me as he has. They did it. Eliphaz the Temite and Bildad and the Shumite and
God restores us. He does not play. When he restores us, but you know, a lot of things took place before the restoration. You know what? First thing Job did, Job repents, and not in the repentance, he's confessing how wrong he was, how lack of knowledge that he had as far as God was concerned. You know what? We are men and women of God, but you know what? All we know is what the word God is so much superior than we are that there's a lot of things that we'll never know about him. Amen. And then Job goes on as he repents before God. Before God
had interceded for his friends, God restored his fortune and then doubled it. All his brothers and sisters and friends came to his house and celebrated. They told him how sorry they were and consoled him for all the trouble God had brought him. Each of them brought generous housewarming gifts. God blessed Job's later life even more than he had his early life. He ended up with 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 teams of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He named the first.
Amen. Because as we end this lesson, we want everybody to know that God is either everything or he's nothing.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. I just love it. I love it.
Don't it bring that scripture alive too, that he'll make your enemies your friends?
Yes.
Job was letting them know the whole time, y'all trying to blame me for something I haven't done, and I'm steady telling you I haven't done nothing wrong, but yet you continue to try to, speak for God and blame me for something I haven't done.
Yes.
You know something? I'm looking at the first part of 42 and how Job admits that I thought I knew you. Now I know
Yeah.
you. Now I know you.
Come on.
I was working on mostly rumors before, but now I know you.
That's the thing.
Mm.
We got to know God for ourselves.
Yes.
That's right. So some of the stuff we go
We
through,
have to go through.
we got to go through
Yes.
it so we can know Him for
God.
ourselves.
Yes.
And then, you know, as much evidence that God provides us, we still are contempt
Yes.
prior to the evening investigation.
My God.
Go ahead, Greg. Lord,
That's that human flesh.
Yeah.
But I like the way that Job, we said earlier in the earlier parts of our lesson, that Job would address his friends and defending that I'm a righteous man. And at the same time, he's going to God and say, why are you doing this to me? And then when God speaks, he speaks to Job and chastises him and says, are you greater than me? Is what you asking for? You think you're greater than me? You think you're going to question me about how I'm treating you? And so God talks to Job, and then he turns around and talks to his friend.
Yeah.
Now I need Job to go ahead and bless you, to pardon you for what you told the lies about me.
Amen.
So God and Job did the same thing. They talked to two people at the same time.
right? Amen. Well, we truly bless God for our teacher tonight. My Lord.